Fellow Toastmasters, tonight I would like to address what is really happening in our society. The question I have here is, public education in America is not so much broken as it is under-resourced to educate all children. Now, that statement comes true when you see the nice handout I gave you. Where do we spend the most of our money? Military. Where do we spend money on education? Would you believe the figure you're looking at right here for 2013? Last year it was 4%. We spent 4% on education last year, and we went up a mere 2%. That is totally unacceptable. Especially if we want to have top schools, if we want to have top students. We have got to spend money on education. Now, we are spending money not only for drones, that's an automatic satellite that goes around and strikes people down. We're spending money on nuclear warfare. We haven't stopped, I'm sure. I got a call from the Jewish Foundation, and she was asking me for money. I said, well, doesn't America give you all $5 billion every year? She said, yeah, but we have to use that for security because they keep on bombing us. And so Israel has figured out a way to intercept the drones so that they will not destroy it. Isn't that interesting? So that's our tax money over there, okay? So I'm in favor of us minding our own business and educating our own people right here in America. So I want to find out if you feel similar. If you feel that the people who are real rich would be uninterested in having to pay a little bit more taxes because they can afford it, and cutting down on some of the necessities that we need in education. They cut out art. There's one school that had a problem with art. The children had to have art on a computer. You know art has to come alive. You got to have some paintings, some craft works for the students to do. How are you going to learn art? So what my suggestion to you is do you believe that we should spend 60% for military, Department of Defense, War, Veterans Affairs? We don't want to slight them, that's okay. Nuclear weapons and programs. Or should we increase our amount for education from 60% to, let me hear a figure that you think would be acceptable. What figure should we increase our education to? It's got to be a figure that's going to work. Do you know why your car, if you drive, you know why your car is working crazy, right? Transportation, they only had 1%. Education, 6%. So I feel that we should definitely make an effort to call our congressmen, to call the White House, and tell them that we want to spend more money on public education and less money on military. With a show of hands, how many of you agree that spending more money on public education would be very helpful? Okay, that's 1, 2, everybody, wonderful, that's wonderful. So let's do it.
That was such an exciting speech, and I love this, I love the visual element, this thing. It's, is it all right if I keep this?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
How else are you going to help us move this along?
I think the best part about it was your enthusiasm and your passion for the topic. And, you know, I don't think this speech was, maybe you hadn't written this out. You know, there was kind of a off-the-cuff kind of quality to impromptu quality to it, which was which worked out because you were so passionate and cared so much about the topic. And did I say that's a great visual element? I think I did. There was maybe some factual elements in there that didn't seem quite right, and so, like, I think you said something about Israel and the drones. Like, Israel has figured out how to destroy the drones, and I think you said Israel has figured out how to destroy the drones.
No, when I talked to the lady, when she called me up, she said they had figured out how to, they spend all that money that they receive from America to protect them from the bombs that's coming. Not drones, I don't think.
But you did say drones.
But I did read,
okay.
yeah, I might have said drones, but I did read that they know how to intercept things to stop them. I did read that.
Oh yeah, I think that's
yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think if you were to do the speech again, you know, maybe kind of doing a little fact checking or working out some of that sort of the details about where the money is going, how it's being spent for these different programs, I think would really add a very concrete element to the great kind of passion and vibrancy of the speech.
These visuals been mentioned and passion's already been mentioned. These are great strengths of here. You've got some great examples in there. You have a clear next step of contacting your congressman, contacting people, and you got the audience involved. Thoughts for development. One thing is you can get the audience to answer the question. I mean, one easy question is, where is all of our, most of our money being spent? And you say, just wait. And you just can hold it up like this and say, what in here has the largest amount? Hint, it's in red. Something like that. Get the audience to respond. That's a good way to do audience involvement. Now, the challenge is going through is how much are we going to raise education by? And that's great if everyone agrees with you. If they don't agree with you, if you're in a hostile audience, that's not going to persuade anybody. It could be considered confrontational. So it's something to think about.
Don't be hostile about what now?
When you're saying to people how much we're going to raise education by and those sort of questions, if everybody agrees with you and they think, great, military is being spent too much, fine, no problem. If they agree with you, great. But if you're trying to convince people, that sort of question could be considered confrontational. They have to first get to understand that, go along, at least agree with that, or at least consider that, and then they can go to the next step.
Okay.
Some people won't want to divulge their opinions so much in that sort of situation because, those sort of issues. You use we a lot, and I think the challenge here is to use we. If we means the government, there's nothing I can do. The government handles it. Government does whatever it does. I can't do anything about it. But what can I do? Or in other words, what can you do? That's going to be the most powerful. Everyone agrees, the government's horrible, the debt's out of control. But what do I do about it? Nothing, because, hey, got nothing to do. I complain about it, call the congressman, whatever. Is there anything really that can be done that I can do to reduce military spending? I mean, what really can be done? That's a bottom line. If you can get a use statement in there, that can be a challenge. But a powerful thing, you get a use statement in there. Think about stories. Stories can be very impactful, very, very effectful. And benefits. What do we really get out of it? Paint this sort of future picture. If we start reducing this, then we're going to get, if we continue this military spending, the road wrong of all these disasters, if we lower the military spending and put it in education, smart kids, this is leading to, etc. But again, a really great, powerful thing, and I can see certainly you doing this in front of the education union, places with a lot of people who are kind of on your side, and get them all roused up to go out there and spread the word. And then on the corners, of course, you can hand these things like let's let people think them over. But very powerful document and a good presentation.
I actually would like to double whatever everybody said, and also it's a great speech. I can see your passion about the cause. I think one of the things that I would suggest that when you actually sort of encourage people to write to the White House, to write to the Congress to spend more, you can actually mention a number, saying spend 1% more. That way, because if they only spend $1 more, that's more, right? But that doesn't solve any issue. You want to actually sort of a figure that it's a target that's identified Otherwise, they spend $10 more. That's more, right? But it doesn't help anything. And then you can also, I think, just add to what Tim just said. You can say by that 1%, you can say the kids in my neighborhood will be able to get a new set of Macs instead of the year-old 90s Apple desktop. So that's something that you sort of turn that the 1% can get work for the kids that are around you. So that way you can see the benefit, not just some abstract number.
Barbara, as everyone mentioned, this is obviously something that you feel very strongly about, but this is also something that a lot of other people feel strongly about in the opposite direction. 60% of the budget is going to military for a reason. Therefore, you have to give them a reason to change it, to change their minds, because you want to knock out all this other stuff, or is it specifically military that you want to shut down? You want to say, we don't need that Department of the Interior, let's take that money and put it in. Therefore, you have to to convince somebody that you are correct. First of all, you have to convince them that education is worth it, and secondly, you have to convince them, you have to let them know what is the amount of money you think you need to get the results you want. Several of the things you said were confusing or not correct. You said to us, education was 4% of the budget last year. Your paper actually says it's 6%.
No. I told you last year it was 4%.
Okay,
it
so
went up
this-
2%.
Well, now we're under sequester, so I'm positive it's gone down. Another thing that I think would be helpful is if you had actual money amounts here. So if you said, does $2.4 billion seem like enough to educate the kids in America? Well, maybe you think so, but kids at this specific school haven't had new books in 5 years. These kids over here are living in a building that has no heat. These kids over here, so point out some of the problems. How much would it cost to fix that particular problem? You said, well, how much are you willing to pay? And you kind of looked around at us, but we don't know. It would be better if you said, with an increase of $200 billion a year, which is a mere 1.4%, we could get all of these things. So you need to kind of first sell us on the importance of education. And I thought that the thing that you said about them having to get all of their art on the computer, and art needs to be lived. I was thinking, well, nobody's going to bring in a Rembrandt to show these kids an actual Rembrandt. Give more specific examples. Did you mean like they're getting singing lessons off of it instead of from a teacher? They're getting dance lessons by watching Dancing with the Stars. Give us some specific examples of the things that could be improved with more money. That trip to Israel thing where you kind of wandered off into Israel, I was totally confused by that and didn't. I think basically what you're trying to do is sell the importance of education and convince us that it is worth the extra money, which you know about how much that would cost, and say, the education budget is currently 6%, which I can guarantee you it is not because this is under sequestration. It needs to be really, in order to be effective, and these are the things you'll get. If it's effective, it needs to be cut up to 8%. And now that's a mere 2% of the budget. Where could we find 2% of the budget? And this really is very powerful because it just horrifies me that 60% of the money that we're spending is to kill things. So I would suggest that also sometimes your words were not correct. You said, so my suggestion to you is, do you believe? That's not a suggestion, that's a question. And I would start with, what's an education worth to you? Is it what helped you get your good job? Is it what's going to keep your family fed and clothed? That's pretty important to you then, isn't it? And continue on that way. And so, you're not actually confronting people and saying, we have to cut down on the military. You start out with, is education important? And most people will say it is important. And then you just build on that. That would be my suggestion.